Good afternoon. Thank you for your displays of affection that you have offered me, particularly because even if the symposium is not that good, I have guaranteed an applause. In the case of Mexico, speaking of religion is a natural process because the country has always been a very devout people. Since the pre-Hispanic times, there has been a faith. In 500 years of our Aztec heritage allowed us to have a Quetzalcoatl, where there was always a spiritual realm that helped the people in those times. The 300 years of Spanish rule brought us the consequence of a substitution of the deities that we worshipped, which were multiple, and it was substituted by a single creator. The case is very well known in Mexico, where there was Tlaloc, the god of rain, who was substituted by San Isidro, which was a saint that we prayed to when we wanted it to rain. And these types of circumstances were not easy to introduce to the people, because when you have a belief, substituting it with another belief, there must be generations that go by. That's why I said it was 300 years and intolerance that could be felt. There was Marqués de Croa that when this change was taking place, the indigenous people he said to the people, know it from now on that the desires of the monarch that rules you from Spain, all that is given to you is to be quiet and obey, and you must not interfere with the high matters of government. These are the kinds of thinkings that took place then that sometimes still take place in certain regions of the country, because the aspect of religious liberties in the case of Mexico happened in 1824, where the conditions were generated so an official religion could be recognized, such as the Catholic Church. Nevertheless, it was just a little bit of time where this was present, because midway through the 19th century, there was a reformation that brought as its consequence the separation of church and state. It became a strong differential conversation, where in the Constitution of 1917, this constitution that was given after the revolution, many interpreted it as in order to generate peace in the country, you had to be open to other beliefs. And this is where the Cristera War took place, where there was no respect and no tolerance. And this is a delicate theme, because as we spoke in the panel before, what is the difference between tolerance and respect? Mr. Cordurja, he spoke of tolerance because that is what we traditionally manifest, but this is an expression that has many connotations that go along with it. Tolerating is to accept something that I don't like. That's why in New York, when the anti-crime, it said it was a zero tolerance program. So if there are other considerations, such as the tolerance zone, where the girls are present, but these are all considerations that don't have a precision that the word respect does have. So the respect that must be given to different religions within religious freedom must be present in the Constitution. In the case of Mexico, when the reform took place in the Constitution, in order to give the guaranteed human rights, and in the beginning, to human beings as individuals, and then the expanded rights, not only those established in the Constitution, but to be included in the international treaties that are accepted by the country. So that is why we adhere ourselves to Article 18 about human rights and the rights of human beings. This article states all the possibilities of action and all the wide range that the religions have, so that they are able to profess their beliefs and have a freedom of thinking. This is established. Nevertheless, in Mexico, many become frightened by this concept, and that's why there was a reformation in the year 2010 to establish that in Mexico, when the changes were taking place, Mexico had to declare itself as a secular state. We are a democratic state, and it is secular and federal. The changes that took place in 1992, which to some people seemed like they were betraying some of the heroes of the nation, it was a taboo topic. Those they considered to be the fundamental clauses that were in the Constitution, and they did not want them changed. Nevertheless, in 1992, that fundamental change took place where we recognized the freedom of religion and of public worship, of weddings that not always take place within temples. All of these spoke of the rights the believers have to profess a faith that is not necessarily having to be done in private, but that they could profess in public the things that they believed. Nevertheless, recognizing this, we must state not everybody in the country was in agreement. In 1992, there was a strong opposition from a small number, but a president like Salinas de Gortari accepted it. But we must say that the debate was not a simple one. It was a very heated debate because there was 13 legislators from one of the political parties that was radically opposed to have any type of relationship with the Vatican. They said that they were a make-believe government. They said, why do we need to speak of spirituality when we are speaking of earthly things? There were 13 legislators from the PPS, and none of them signed up to speak for it. There was 13 against it and nobody for it. And fortunately, with the speech that was made, things were made a little bit more calm so that the reform could be approved. And I would like to say that in that occasion, there was many clergy present that were awaiting the final decision. So when the debate came up and everybody was against it, Diego Fernandez said, how curious it is that these 13 men have such an influence on what we dictate as a country. And he spoke for the faith, and he said that it wasn't so much that he referred to a poet back then. He said, to God I go, he said, I am of light and of darkness, and I wish to give myself to both. So that was the end of the debate. The reform was accepted, and that is where the rights were amplified. But this amplification was not taken fully, because when a law is established without a general consensus, it was a republic without Republicans. And the same thing was happening here. It was a constitution that accepted rights, but they were not exercised. And when things are not exercised, they atrophy. And that is unfortunately what has been happening, despite the small steps that we have been taking. What happens is that the expressions of religion are very limited because of the fear that there is of some type of oppression. If we could, undignified, because it does not allow freedom to be expressed fully. And we must remember that dignity comes from deity, and we are dignified as we approximate ourselves to God, and we are undignified if we further ourselves from our Creator. So when we are not able to manifest and express ourselves, it is clear that we are not living true to our deity. And it has occurred in several cases where there are religious persecutions. In Mexico, there was a murder of 43 people. There's corruption from the first level, and everybody is involved in it. But churches remain on the margins. Like if they had no liberty to express themselves, and they must be able to express themselves, because when they are not able to, when they are not able to participate due to negligence or fear or whatever it might be, there is always a type of censorship, because the person that having the opportunity to do good doesn't do it because of fear of the retributions he may receive. We must remember that nobody knows the names of those that that nailed Christ on the cross. Nobody remembers the name of the people that turned him in. Very few people know the name of the people that censored him. But everybody has very clear the name of that negligent person that having the opportunity to do good preferred to wash his hands. And that is why still, 2,000 years later, his name still appears in the Catholic faith, Pontius Pilate. And that is what happens to us a lot. We recently learned of a killing in Oregon, and we know that Chris Herman, which is the name of the person that murdered 9 people, he would ask them before he murdered them, "Are you a Christian?" And if they said yes, he would shoot them in the head. And if they said no, he would shoot them anywhere else, or he just left them there. That situation, nobody has questioned it. Nobody has pointed it out. Nobody has gone out and said it. And I think that in these terms, having these liberties, today the church must have a more prominent role. I don't want to carry it too far. I don't want to talk about Forum 18 or Human Rights Watch or everybody that's participating in this theme, but there must be a type of unity, because within unity, the governments that must serve its citizens are taking rights that are not theirs to take. In section 134 of the Doctrine and Covenants of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that governments are instituted for the benefit of man. Nevertheless, our people in Latin America, including Latin America, we have strong governments and weak societies. And this does not make it plausible for us to reach and bring progress that a strong society requires. Not only the participation of families and parents that educate, but also the participation of religion, which must have these opportunities to participate because they form a public opinion conglomerate which must influence in the politics of the country. Being held at the margin, it has allowed other people to come and state what they want and be given that. There are themes such as abortion, and the government has allowed the marriage of homosexuals, which is not yet recognized in the Constitution. And all these things are brought before legislatures. Governments and parliaments must change their constitutions to allow these differing. Well, I would like to mention a curious case where in Chihuahua, there was an outcry from several churches that were opposed to these ideas, and there were several jurisprudence. It was interesting that although they were speaking out against or were in opposition, then the government came in and gave their opinion. So now, for now, it's being handled case by case. But the laws were not passed because there was participation from the religions. Yesterday, we heard from Alfonso Santiago, where he mentioned that there are few and rare occasions where the opinion of religion is considered, but it should be the norm, not the exception. Because we can see, like in Alabama this last Monday, they are basing their rule to not allow homosexual marriages from a law in 1961. When this law was established, this was a law that was established should not permit interracial marriage. So to relate this law to the present, it's irresponsible. New decisions and determinations must be made, especially when we are thinking that we are of the correct opinion. So these things must be done with equilibrium, because being idealists implies that we must have our feet firmly grounded. The idealist is that person that has his feet firmly planted, but he has his eyes open to all types of knowledge and all types of experiences, but at the same time has fundamental values that subordinate anything that is transcendental or frivolous, and seeks for truth and righteousness. Being idealists, we must seek this balance where we don't talk about just imposition on the church, to the state, but also not that the state forces or imposes itself upon its citizens. There must be a balance. So this requires people that with intelligence are able to assume the responsibilities from the top of power to its people, that expresses with freely his opinions, such as is stated in this forum. Thank you.